Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to Overcoming Illness. So, good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you're watching from in the rest of the world. I'm your host, Paula Denoncourt. I'm founder and CEO of Enrich Your Health. If you have not watched me before, I do want to welcome everybody. And let me just tell you a little bit about myself really quick. I am a holistic health coach. I have suffered from multiple food allergies myself. So I specialize in food allergies, food intolerances, and autoimmune illnesses. Oddly enough, Lyme disease sort of fell into my lap, and I became a big advocate for Lyme disease. I do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, speaking engagements, and now my own TV show, which is exciting. So if you haven't watched any of the past broadcasts, I highly suggest you go over and watch them. I've had some amazing guests on that have overcome cancer, congestive heart failure, COVID, just all types of autoimmune illnesses, diabetes. So if you have not seen me before and this is your first time watching, please watch some of those replays. I also have digital ebooks and recipe books for people that do suffer from things like autoimmune or Lyme disease. They're like simple recipes that are like dairy-free, gluten-free, sugar-free, things like that. I have free gifts on there. One's called Reversing Illness. It's an ebook that's free. And one's a 6-day immunity meal plan guide. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm not going to talk about myself this whole time. We have an amazing guest today, Ashley J. Walker, who also is a relationship coach and also has her own show. So let me just tell you a little bit about Ashley. She's a devoted wife, mother, therapist, relationship, and date coach. She helps singles to be in the best position to find their forever love. She assists couples to stay in love. Ashley knows just how difficult it can be in the dating world. Isn't that the truth? In navigating relationships. She desires to see marriages restored healthily and according to the Word of God. So once again, she's a certified relationship coach, host, producer of the Love Experience Show, and she lets people find love and stay in love. But Ashley has overcome 2 autoimmune illnesses, so she's going to share her story tonight of what she's gone through, what she still goes through, and how she can help you. And before we get started, I do want to put out a disclosure. Full disclosure, this is not medical advice. This is not meant to cure, heal, or treat any illnesses. This is for educational purposes only. I highly suggest you work with your doctor with any information you find on this show or any broadcast. So with that, I want to welcome Ashley. Thank you so much for being on tonight with us.
Thank you for having me, Paula.
You're welcome. Glad you're here. So first and foremost, just tell us, I gave you the bio, but tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, your family, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay, so as Paula said, I'm Ashley J, and I am married. I have a bonus child who is 19 years old, and I have my little guy. He is 3 years old. My husband and I, we've been married for 6 years, but we've been together for 10 years. We live in Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and life is full of all of the things. And I enjoy every minute of it. I also enjoy the work that I do. As Paula said, I am a therapist. I'm a couples therapist, and I help individuals as well. So all of this that I have is God given, and I love it all.
Well, thank you, and welcome once again. So when did you first experience symptoms of your illness? And I know you said you had 2, so tell us the first one that you went through. and what you actually got a diagnosis of and all of that.
Okay, so my story is a little, I guess, different because when I first experienced symptoms of an illness, it was February of 2016, and it started as a viral infection. And I had an ear infection and this cough and just feeling weak. Everything that you feel with a viral infection is what I was experiencing. As time went by, I did go to the doctor. It was supposed to be out of my system within maybe 2 weeks tops. And 2 weeks came and went, and I still felt sick. I still felt bad and actually felt like I was getting worse. And I would be like super, super exhausted to the point where I could barely drive myself home from work because I was just so exhausted. I recall one time I left work early because I couldn't be there. I used to work for TSA. So I left work early because I just couldn't handle work that day. And as I was driving home, I was in traffic and fell asleep at the wheel, and someone was literally inches in front of me. When I opened up my eyes, I saw that I was coming up to the bumper, and I had to swing into the shoulder so that I did not hit them. So that is just to tell you a little bit of what I was experiencing during that time. So when I finally got home, this is around the time my husband and I were planning our wedding. And I was pushing myself. I was working overtime, doing a lot of things so that I could prepare for my wedding. So it could be my dream wedding. So I was adding that on top of already being exhausted. Um, and went to the doctor because just things weren't right. And they were like, well, it just seems like this viral infection is taking a little longer to get out of your system. Give it some more time. Okay, that's what I'll do. And giving it more time gave me more symptoms. And one day I woke up and my extremities were tingling and had no idea why. And it didn't make sense that maybe I fell asleep wrong on my arm, or because it was both of my arms and both of my feet and my legs. Made no sense why this was happening. Called the doctor. They told me to get to the hospital because they were afraid that this was the onset of MS, multiple sclerosis. So get to the hospital. They didn't really do anything at that time. They ran tests on me, couldn't figure out what was going on. Just told me to go home and rest. So I went home to rest, tried to get up to go to work maybe like a couple days later. And at that point, that's when my walking changed. So I went through this long period of time where I could not walk straight up and down. To put it like someone that I worked with told me, I looked like a 90-year-old woman trying to walk. And at that point, I was in my early 30s. So didn't make sense. Made myself go to work. Struggled to get off the train and walk to the checkpoint that I worked on, and took everything out of me. And finally, someone was like, you cannot work like this. So they took me to a manager's office and they called the paramedics. And the paramedics came and they ran vitals and they asked me what did I want to do. So I called my husband, and well, he was my fiance at the time. Told him what was going on. Told me, don't let them take you to the hospital. I'm coming to get you, and we're going to go to the hospital by our house. So I said, okay. So he came and got me. That was my very first time having to stay in a hospital overnight. And they put me as a fall risk because of the way the hard time I had walking. So I was not allowed to get out the bed. There was actually an alarm on the bed so that if I did get up, they would come in and make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
Um, had the nerve test done, which that was super painful. I mean, it was incredibly painful. And the doctor that was doing it, he was no help because he couldn't understand why I was in so much pain. And if you guys don't know what the nerve conduction test is, um, it's a test where they have these needles that have probes on them, and they have a wire that's going from the needle to a machine that's reading the reaction your nerves have once the needle touches them. So that's what he was doing, sticking this needle in me, and it was painful. And like I was about to cry. And he basically told me to suck it up because
Oh my God.
it shouldn't hurt that bad. That was ridiculous. So went back to the room. He said from his findings there was nothing wrong with my nerves, and actually said I needed to see a psychiatrist because I was saying I would see things. Like it seemed like my vision was changing, which it was.
Yeah.
But according to him, there was no reason for that to happen. So I needed to see a psychiatrist. So the doctor that was overseeing my care, he was like, look, I don't think you need to see a psychiatrist. He said, there is something wrong, something happening to you. He said, but we are not able to find it here. So I'm going to send you to the neurologist that my daughter goes to, and maybe he can help you. He's really good. So went to the neurologist, and he did the nerve conduction test all over again. And I expressed my apprehension for it. He was like, I promise you, it's not going to be the same way it was in the hospital. So, and it wasn't. He kept his promise. And he ran all of his multiple tests, and everything kept coming back negative. There was no findings for anything besides me having migraines. That was it. So at this point, my wedding is coming up to is about to happen. Like this started in February. We're now probably in like March and April. My wedding was May 1st.
Mm.
And we had to have some hard conversations. Are we going to go through with the wedding? What are we going to do? And I said we had like let's go through with it. Um just having faith that hopefully that day would be completely different than the days that I've had leading up to it. And
Mm.
it was different.
Mm.
So and still during this time not having a diagnosis. So still going back and forth to the doctors. They're trying me on different medications to see if this will help. I had physical therapy. They would come to my house to provide physical therapy for me, so that I can start walking and be independent again. Because at this point, I was relying on my fiance. My mother, she lived in Philadelphia. She came down and stayed with us for a few weeks to help me while because he had to go back to work. He stayed home with me for a little bit, but he had to go back to work. So she came and she helped to take care of me for a few weeks. And it was a very trying time because I went from being someone who was extremely independent, living life, having fun, to someone who now was basically bedridden
Mm.
and couldn't do anything. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. And it
yeah,
wasn't that long ago. 2016 is not that long ago for all
it's
that.
not. It's not.
So, how did the illness affect your relationship?
So, it actually kind of brought us together even more,
Mm.
because now I won't say that there wasn't added stress because of it, because now we went from two incomes to one. And it was there was stress there, but we also learned to honestly get closer together because of it. He had to be more in tune with me as far as my needs because there was nobody else to do it. He
Mm-hmm.
had to be the one that I relied on. He was my support system, my shoulder when times got extremely difficult for me. Um, he was the one that I would share my fears with. Talked about what if I can never walk again? Because when I came home from the hospital, I came home with a walker. And so I was like, well, what if I never get better? What if I could never walk again? So my husband was always there to build me up on those days where I felt completely low.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped to bring us together, most definitely. And it helped us to learn how to problem solve because these were problems that neither one of us perceived happening in our lives. So it helped us to problem solve as well.
Yeah, you're very fortunate, and I would even say something you might even want to. I don't know if you're doing this already, but in your practice, you may even want to niche down to people that are overcoming illnesses in relationships, because
That
that's what I've noticed in my walk with all of this. Is
that has been a thought.
yeah, no, it's huge. In fact, we were just before I moved. I used to go to all the group meetings for Lyme disease back in Massachusetts, and they were starting to talk about having more group meetings just for like families. So
Mm,
families, like spouses, would know how to handle all of it. You know,
mhm,
the kids with the spouse with their illness. People don't know how to handle it. What do we do? They just don't. Like you said, it became one problem after another, and usually the biggest one, you named it,
yeah.
money, finances. So thank you for sharing that. And like I said, with what you're doing with relationships, you might want to think about starting to draw those people in because they need you.
Okay.
They really need you. They really need that kind of a support system. They really do. Mm-hmm.
I'll consider that. Thank you.
So, what were some of the emotional effects of the illness?
Whew. Depression.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I was very depressed. And honestly, I didn't realize how depressed I got until having a conversation with the doctor. I was really depressed because, like I said, my life changed overnight, literally overnight. And I didn't know how to handle that. I've had family members who had diabetes and had heart problems and heart attacks and stuff like that, but never witnessed anybody having anything close to what I was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really foreign to me. I had no idea what to do and how to even get back to my old self. So I was very depressed. I had some anxiety. My self-esteem was like low. It
Mm-hmm.
really did get low.
Well, for everybody watching and for you too, one thing with autoimmune is we found, the illness itself can cause anxiety because of the nervous system.
Mhm.
Some people don't absorb vitamin B. That's another reason. Um, and this can be Lyme disease or an autoimmune. I mean, it doesn't have to be Lyme, but the illness itself can cause that, and then being ill causes it. So it's like two,
Mhm.
you know, because yeah, you are ill. You're not walking like you used to. You're not able to do what you used to do and have the energy and feel well.
Mhm.
So and then you feel like you probably felt like you were a burden on your husband,
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's I feel like it's a double whammy when it comes to that. The illness itself physically affects you. It
It
causes
does.
it causes anxiety. Um, I'll tell you, I talked about this on other shows, but you might not have heard it. I answer phones for grocery stores full time. And I can tell right off the bat when somebody's got an autoimmune issue. They're usually very manic. They don't
Mm-hmm.
stop talking. The wheels are spinning, and it's like, listen to me, and then they kind of have like a little bit of anger in them. They can't help it.
Right.
No, they just can't help it, and I know that. And the more I talk to them, then they usually start to talk about they have to have a special diet, and it comes out.
Yeah.
It comes out. I'm usually right. It's not, maybe not every single call, but a good majority. I just know right off the bat, because they're very OCD is another one.
Yeah.
It You just know by talking. I was talking to one woman, and she was talking about her son, and he's older, but he was very set in his ways, a little bit autistic. I knew. I was like, he's got an autoimmune issue. I could tell by the way she was talking. He couldn't have certain foods, all, certain things she was saying, and he had to have things a certain way and all this kind of stuff. So I knew. So like I said, just getting back to that, it gives you physical symptoms. And then again, that, just being ill, who doesn't get depressed? I got depressed when I was ill.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go out to eat. I didn't know what I could eat. It was just horrible, And then on top of it, when I was in Massachusetts, I worked in a prison. So now I'd be in dispatch. All these people would bring in all this food, right? Well, I couldn't eat it. I'm smelling like pasta and meatballs and steak, and I couldn't eat all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that was depressing. So believe me, I get it. When you're trying to get well, there's so many things that you have to factor in. So I do get it.
Can I add something to that last question?
Absolutely.
So the other thing that did not help was going to the doctor and still not having answers,
Right.
and then almost being made to think that you're actually believing all of this in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my husband, I'm like, am I crazy? Like, do you see me, walking this way? Like, can you see it? And he's like, no, you're not going crazy. He was like, I can see that you've completely changed. I see that there's something different. So even having those thoughts
Yeah.
from the doctor being put on me, planting seeds inside of me,
Yeah.
was not helpful at all.
And yeah, one of the other things with autoimmune is it can cause mental health issues. So
Mhm.
they do try to tell people they're basically crazy. They need a
Yeah.
psychiatrist. They do it all the time. I had a friend who had she was actually had mold toxicity. She almost died. She is doing so much better now.
Wow.
But she had mold toxicity, and so that caused issues like an autoimmune illness, when she had, a little bit of craziness in her, but she wasn't that crazy.
Right.
Well, I think they put her on like Section 8 or something in the hospital, which that usually means the mental health ward. And she was going out of her mind. She's like, they're trying to lock me up and da 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 da. I'm not crazy. And you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what they try to say, that they're crazy, whether it's mold toxicity, whether it's Lyme, or just, an autoimmune. They just try to say that it's all in their head, and it's not. It's a
Right.
true illness. Um, so how did you handle the changes to your lifestyle? Tell us a little bit about that.
um, One way that I handled it, which was not very healthy, but I kind of had comfort food.
Mm.
And I gained a little more weight while I was unable to do my daily activities. So I would just really lay around and watch TV. I was in school at that time as well. I was getting my bachelor's degree. So I was trying to do homework too and, complete my classes during that time.
Mm.
So that was what I did. Tried to stay in contact with family because they always seem to have had the ability to lift me up and make me feel, at least forget it for the time being while I'm talking to them. But that was one thing that was one thing I did, and I guess I became like a Netflix queen during that time. Because I was home doing, if I wasn't doing homework, I wasn't doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I did was, watch TV. I was not even close to thinking about what my purpose was in life.
Yeah.
So, that's all I did. I watched TV. I talked to my husband. I guess kind of this is kind of going back to the emotional part of it, but I did think about suicide during that time. I did. Um that would, because it was a difficult transition.
Mm-hmm.
It was a difficult transition for me. When I was able to, I did try to get out. It wasn't very often, but we did try to go do things like maybe go to the movies or something like that. But that would be uncomfortable for me. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that I could do all the time. And I could definitely not walk for long periods of time. So I learned to listen to my body.
Mm-hmm.
That is another thing I did. I learned to listen to my body. Whenever I got up to do things, I would pay attention to my limitations and pay attention to what was easy for me to do and what was not so easy for me to do. Um, my body and I became very acquainted during that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. So
And
tell us a bit about getting a diagnosis. So how did that come about? Who diagnosed you? What happened?
okay, so the diagnosis, the first diagnosis. Um I that came about one day, I think it was like a Saturday, and I believe it was after my wedding. My husband, he woke up early one day and he was in his office, and he came to the bedroom and he woke me up. He was like, "Hey, look at this, read this." And he printed out some papers and I'm reading it. The paper is describing some symptoms like tingling in the arms and legs, and difficulty walking, and possibly having a rash, and some other things. And I was like, wow, that sounds like what I'm experiencing. He was like, I came across this thing called fibromyalgia. I said, okay. I think I had a doctor's appointment coming up soon. So I was like, well, let's bring it up to the doctor. So next doctor's appointment, we brought it up to the doctor and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds like it fits. We'll go with that. And I said, okay, relieved a little bit and then disappointed at the same time, because I'm like, okay, great, we have a label for this now, but you're just saying, okay, let's go with it, and didn't really do any more research into if this was really the thing, and you're just going off of what it sounds like. Okay, so all right. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the diagnosis. That was the working diagnosis, fibromyalgia. And in between, after that, I went to the rheumatologist because that was also something that was suggested. So I went to the rheumatologist and they were telling me, well, we don't really think that fibromyalgia quite fits what you have going on. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Because I almost got upset because I'm like, after all of this time, I finally got something and you're telling me it's not right. And they're like, well, no, because there's a lot of um, diseases that can mimic fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia is the easy diagnosis for doctors without really doing any more research into it. So yeah, that that is how we came up with that diagnosis.
Which is what happens a lot in autoimmune illness. They automatically, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't do any kind of a test for fibromyalgia, right?
No.
No, there isn't. There isn't any. And
Mm-mm.
Dr. Elena Freed even said that. She came out and said, and this is her words, not mine. There's no such thing as fibromyalgia because they can't really test for it. But what it is like a symptom of an overall.
Umbrella.
So
I
some
would
people,
agree with her.
yeah. Like I said, these are her words, not mine. I just witnessed. I was at a conference with her, and she came right out and said it on stage. There is no, and you can look her up, Dr. Elena Freed. She specializes in Lyme disease, but
Okay.
the reason she's saying it is because there is no specific test. They just automatically assume because people have joint pain, joint inflammation, rheumatoid-like symptoms, that it's
Mm-hmm.
fibromyalgia. There's a bigger picture. Is it
Yeah.
Lyme? I don't know, but there's something bigger going on. So with that,
Definitely.
you, yeah.
So now, the first time I went to the rheumatologist, I liked where the progress was heading, but that rheumatology office, they were really busy. So that meant longer wait times. And when I say long wait times, I mean waiting to see the rheumatologist for almost 2 hours
Mm,
before he came into the room to examine me. So that was disheartening for me because I'm like, okay, I'm finally at this place where they can do other tests that the hospital couldn't do or the other doctor's office couldn't do, but I have to wait this long period of time. So what do I do? So I went back to my PCP and I explained to him my grief. And he was like, well, try this rheumatologist. So I went to a different rheumatologist and she took me right back to fibromyalgia. And I was like, okay, but I don't feel like that's what this is.
mm,
I was having flare ups. There would be periods where I started to feel relief, and then all of a sudden I would have a flare up, and the flare up would send me right back to where I was in the beginning, and then it would get worse. So I'm like, this does not feel the same. Something has changed, and she was like, well, no, because the diagnosis that the other rheumatologist came up with was psoriatic arthritis. And I said, okay, maybe. And they explained to me what it was and I saw the symptoms and I was like, oh yeah, that does fit me. It fits what I have going on. So I went to the other rheumatologist and she was like, well, that is only for people who are Caucasian. And I was like,
mm,
okay, but I have Caucasian blood in me. I have, people in my family, great grandfather, he was Irish. What do you mean? I like I don't understand this. And she was like, well, no, this is very rarely in black people. And I'm like, okay. So I have this. I'm telling you that there is something different happening with me, but you're telling me that the diagnosis that the other rheumatologist came up with is not correct. Okay, so what do I do? Because again, I'm at a crossroads. So, after trying to make future appointments with that other rheumatologist and not having any appointments given to me, I said, forget it. And went back to the original rheumatologist. And they said, okay, you're back. This is what we're diagnosing you with. Because as I said, I had a rash as well. So I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis and granuloma annulare, which are two autoimmune diseases. And I said, okay. And they showed me the pictures and evidence of why they gave me that diagnosis. And I felt comfortable with it. And I said, all right, I'm going with this. So they gave me the appropriate medications. And some of the medications weren't really working as they needed to. So I'm now doing an injection. And I have been doing well.
Good.
I've been doing well.
So what do you, if you don't mind me?
So a I take 4 different pills: gabapentin, sulfasalazine. I take diclofenac, and I take nortriptyline. And the injection is Humira.
Mm, okay. I'm glad you're doing better. Now,
Yeah.
how diet? Have you had to change your diet at all?
So that was one thing I decided to do on my own. I decided to think about what I was eating, and I said, okay, I have a lot of dairy that I'm ingesting, and a lot of meat. And I watched this Netflix documentary called What the Health. And they were showing me all of this stuff, and I said, yeah, I'm cutting this out of my diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I went cold turkey, took everything out of my diet, and was only eating fruits and vegetables. Then I got pregnant. So those cravings kicked in and they won. So I started eating meat again when I was pregnant, but right after, a little bit after I had my son, I went back to a plant-based diet. Started out pescatarian and kind of worked my way back.
Mm-hmm.
So now I kind of go in between pescatarian and full plant-based.
And have you noticed, like, did you notice a big difference when you started to change your diet?
Absolutely. So, um, I did not feel as sluggish. That helped to give me more energy. I felt healthier on the inside. Like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. So, it was like doing a detox and getting rid of all of the bad stuff from inside, and
Mm-hmm.
feeling lighter, and just healthier,
Mm-hmm.
cleaner.
Yeah.
And I tested this theory a couple of weeks ago. I ate some chicken, and I said I will never do that again because
Uh,
it made me feel heavy, and I could totally tell the difference. And I was like, no, I don't like this. I'm not going to do this again.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're doing so much better. So
Thank
tell me
you.
what your life is like today, as far as getting up in the morning.
So getting up is a lot easier. I don't have to really lay in bed too much to like kind of work myself into getting up. The only time I kind of linger in bed is when I might be having a bad day, which is rare these days. But after I'm finished doing my devotional readings, I can get up with no issue and get my day started. And my stamina is a lot longer now. Before I would get tuckered out maybe a couple hours after getting up and getting myself dressed because it was a lot of work. Now I'm good until maybe midnight. So my life is almost back to where it was before I got sick.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you said you read, excuse me, you read devotionals.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your devotionals, your daily devotionals.
So I use the YouVersion app, and I tend to read things that are going to help not just with my health, because I have read health devotionals, but just really help me mentally and spiritually. And it's a lot of devotions about worshiping, praying, um, being a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and even being a mom, raising a boy. It's a lot, and getting my relationship closer with God.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the basics of my devotionals.
Yeah, I think that's a really huge piece. That's why I really wanted to point it out, because I think, I've talked about it on other shows, for people to read the healing scriptures every day,
Mhm.
and really, just go over those day in and day out. Whether
Mhm.
you listen to them on a YouTube video, whether you read them or you speak them out loud yourself, I just think it's really, really important. So thank you for sharing that. So let's see, we've got about 20 minutes left. Um, Anything else you want to share about um, your support from your husband or anything like that?
So one thing, one subject that I kind of jumped over was my wedding day.
Mm-hmm.
So the wedding day came and I was good that day.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to walk down the aisle. I didn't need extra assistance because we were making the plans in case I did. So I would have my dad on one side and my brother on another side to help me get down the aisle. Um, so, but that wasn't needed. I just had my dad. I wore heels that day, which was the first time in months that I was able to do that. And it was a beautiful day. It was beautiful to me. It wasn't beautiful outside. It was a terrible storm, but it was beautiful for me because it was a triumph. It was something that I was working towards getting better for. And I said to God, I said, okay, Lord, we made it through the wedding day. So the honeymoon, can you make sure I'm good on the honeymoon? And he did. I was perfect on the honeymoon.
Oh,
Um, I even capitalized on it. I did things that I would have never done before. Before I was very afraid of water, and on my honeymoon, I was climbing up a cave that was filled with water. I was going down the water slide. Like I was doing a lot of things that was just I was excited. It was like living life again. And the last day of our honeymoon was when the illness was trying to creep back up. And by the time we got home, that was it.
well, when you travel, like this has been even a challenge for me too. Even if you try to eat healthy when you're away, there's always so much. It's
Temptation.
There's always something. Even if you eat a salad, what's in the salad dressing? I mean,
Mhm.
whenever I travel, I don't care. Even if I do eat salads, I always come home bloated. It's inevitable. I always
Mhm.
bloated. Like I can't. There's something I can't digest.
Yeah.
What's the deal? I don't know if it's the oils. I don't know if it's the salad dressing. I couldn't even tell you. But so I can understand why by the time, and of course you probably exerted
I
yourself.
did.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a combination between God knows what's in the food, overexerting yourself.
Yeah.
But at least it was worth it. Yeah.
It was. It was a lot of fun. I think what pushed me over the edge was the day before we were leaving, we went and got a couples massage.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time we did that, it was the best massage I had in a really long time. The last time we did it, not so much. And my walk started to change back to not being able to walk as well. So, yeah, we just hung out in the room the rest of the day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. For those of you listening, I mean, anybody out there, whether you're overcoming an autoimmune illness or you're dealing with somebody with an autoimmune illness, we tend to take things for granted. I had a friend, she didn't have an autoimmune illness, but she had an illness
Mhm.
and she was losing her eyesight. She kept getting tumors all over her body. It was a gene disorder. Don't ask me the name of it.
Wow.
Her mom had it too. She
Mhm.
didn't live past, I think, 40. She was happy to make it to 30.
Wow.
Um, but she wanted it would develop cancer. But anyway, long story short, she was always like happy for her sight, for what she could see when she had it. And
Mhm.
so now I live like on a beautiful lake, and I every morning I wake up and I open those curtains, and I don't know why, but I always think of Julie. I always think of Julie like losing her sight. I just say, thank God I have my sight. I have this beautiful view.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful for that, you know. Or even if I go for a swim, I'm thankful that I have my health, that I can, you know, I've had health challenges, but I can get up and walk, and I can
Yeah.
get up and swim. And, you know what I mean? I was in a car accident. I'm thankful I wasn't overly hurt from that, you know.
Mhm.
I think a lot of us, you know, I just want to throw it out there. We don't know what other people are going through, whether it's an autoimmune illness, cancer, or car accidents, or just injuries. We take things for granted, you know, and I admit I have too. You know, you sit around all the time. It's like I've got 2 feet and you know, I've got my legs. Like, here's another example. Every now and then now, I'll walk to the store. I'm like, you know what?
Mhm.
2 legs, 2 feet. I don't need to drive to the store. So I'll walk to the store. It's a couple of miles. I can't always walk back because I've got too much stuff. But still, we take it for granted. We're so stuck all the time on just jumping in our car,
Yeah.
never using our 2 feet and 2 legs if we have them, and they're working in good order, you know. I just really wanted to throw that out there. Think about it sometime, you know, that you can get up, can get
Yeah.
out. A lot of people out there can't, you know. I mean, I watch TikTok and I see some of these people. Oh my God, there's this one guy on there. His name is Josh, and he had long COVID. And
Mhm.
so he was like an athlete, you know, he used to surf and he did all this stuff, mountain hiking, everything. And for the last, I forget, 9 to 11 months, he's a mess. Like, he can barely walk. He's got a walker. His speech is different. It's almost like he had a stroke, like that kind of
Wow.
a, that's how his body has been reacting.
Okay.
Have good spirits. He's working hard to get better. His speech is improved. His walking is improved. So I think if we just don't look at things in a negative way, and we look at it as how can we help somebody else from what we're going through, I think it makes a huge difference.
I think so too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Tell us a little bit about your show and some of the things you're doing now, how people can reach you. You can certainly ask questions in the chat here on whichever platform, YouTube, Facebook. I go back and check. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can always reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook Messenger. Or Ashley, tell us how we can reach you.
You can find me on all social media platforms at It's Ashley JW.
Mm-hmm.
ITSASHLEY, the letter J and W.
And tell us about your TV show, because you've got an amazing TV show too. Tell us about that.
So I have the show, the Love Experience show. God actually gave me this show in 20 at the end of 2020. And the show is all about individuals or couples coming on talking about their various love experiences. Um, and it's a very realistic show because I don't look for a certain type of story. I like to hear all stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I welcome, like I said, single people. I welcome couples, or even if you are an individual in a couple and your spouse can't come on, you're welcome too. So I love this show and I have a lot of fun on this show. And I think the audience does too. The Love Experience show, it comes on every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook on the Love Experience show channels.
Okay. And do you have any books? Are you writing any books? Or what about that?
So I do. I just finished maybe a week. It's been a couple weeks. Just finished my first book called Creating My Crown, and I'm really excited about it. It's telling my backstory. It's telling my story about being a child who grew up part of my childhood in an abusive home. My mother's husband was very abusive. So, talking about my experience with that and my experience once I realized my parents were divorced, and how my self-esteem took a turn during those times, and not really understanding who I was. So that is part of the backstory, and it's part of a trilogy. I'm getting ready to start on the next installment, so look out for it soon. It'll be pretty soon. I'll have a publisher, or whether I'll self-publish it, it's still in the works.
Well, if anybody's watching, reach out to her. I know a lot of different publishers, so you never know who's watching.
Okay.
So, any last remarks or thoughts that you want to? How about any last tips that you want to give the audience that's dealing with this?
Okay, so my first tip would be to be your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that everything that you're experiencing is what you're experiencing. Do not let the doctors who have not experienced this type of disorder tell you that it's all in your mind, because it's not. You know what's going on with you, and you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to be the one to let them know, hey, this is what's happening. I need you to figure this out, please, because I can't take this any longer. And the other thing is, listen to your body. Our body talks to us, guys. I don't know if you realize that, but our bodies talk to us, and we have to listen to it. Your body will my body was telling me before I crashed, my body was telling me, hey, you need to slow down. But I didn't listen. I just kept pushing. Listen to your body. If I had to do it all over again, I would definitely take heed to what my body was telling me. So listen to your body, because our body talks to us every single day, all day. It even will let you know not to eat that extra piece of cake or whatever. So listen to your body.
It will. Yeah.
And finally, accept that things have changed in your life. But that does not mean stop living. You accept what's happening. One, I think part of the reason why I was going through the depression is because I didn't accept that things were changing. So accept that things are changing in your body, but do not get stuck in a place where you stop living. You can still live life. You can still have a full life in this change. So just accept it and continue to live.
Yeah. That's perfect advice.
Thank you.
That's one thing I always say too is I ask people, think about what is the purpose behind your illness. You know,
Hmm.
believe it or not, there's a purpose.
Yeah.
It may not be what you ever thought it would be. It's not something you would have like sat up at night and thought about.
Right. Right.
Think that I wanted to get multiple food allergies, but what was its purpose? It had a lot of different purposes. One was for me, it was I didn't want to work in the job position I was in anymore. But it can have a lot of different purposes. Maybe you need to be taken care of for a change, you know.
Mm.
You've always been the caregiver, so maybe you just need to be taken care of. Or maybe it's meant for you to help other people or become a practitioner yourself in that illness. So many different reasons. So I always tell people, ask yourself that. What is the purpose behind that illness? There's something. There's a reason. So
Mm. That's good. That was good what you said, because now that I think about it, the purpose for me was to get me to change my focus and start to actually venture out into doing different things, venture out into business, because being an entrepreneur was not something that I thought about before.
mhm.
And that actually came about during all of this. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I think it was two things for you. Is this is what was coming up for me was the like I said, it can be a couple of different reasons. So it was definitely becoming an entrepreneur and getting out of that rat race. I'm
Yeah.
sure being a TSA agent was a rat race.
Yes.
I was a dispatcher in a prison, so it's a rat race. You know,
Hmm.
there's that, And then you also said it, slowing down. It was time
Mhm.
and fulfill what your purpose is. You know, it was time to
Yeah.
rest and figure that out. So it's kind of a combination, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
And
I
maybe
was
a bit of you needed to be taken care of too. You never, you know, you said you grew up in not the greatest environment.
yeah.
Maybe that too, you know. So like I said, it give you a combination of different things. Not it
That's
may not
true.
be one, you know, but well, Ashley, this has been amazing. I really, really, really want to thank you for being on today. Any last thoughts you want to share with everybody? Anything else?
Don't take advantage of life. Live
Yeah,
life to the fullest.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So with that, I just wanted to mention I am looking for more guests going into September. I think I still have some openings the end of August. So it's live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm looking for more guests. Eventually, I'm going to have some sponsors. So feel free to reach out to me. If you want to be a sponsor, we'll have commercial breaks where you can show products or things like that that have to do with illness. Um, I prefer that. Well, it would be helpful for, you know, like for instance, say it's like a skincare line that's
Mhm.
helpful for somebody with autoimmune who can't have chemicals on their body or even cancer, things like that.
Mhm.
Supplements, skincare lines, whatever, things, you know, things on that idea. So definitely want to be doing that. So just wanted to let everybody know that we will be here again next Sunday, 7 p.m. We have another amazing guest that's gone through a whole slew of different things. So can't even begin to tell you what she's gone through, and even with her kids too. So
Wow.
yeah, she's gone through a lot herself and her kids, some autoimmune issues, her kids. So I'm gonna leave that up to next week for her to it all. But thank you again for being on, Ashley. I want to thank all the viewers, the replay viewers. And once again, if you have questions for Ashley, you don't know where to find her, you don't feel comfortable putting in any chat or in public, please feel free to reach out to me. Or if you're going through something, you need help with your diet, that's where I specialize in. I can help you, you know, stop eating so much sugar and processed foods and all of that. I had to do it. I had to do dairy free, gluten free, sugar free, nut free, you name it. I've been
Wow.
there. I can help you. Mm-hmm. And do customized recipes, or I've got just digital recipe books. So that we will end the show. So thank you again, Ashley, and thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Paula.
being on tonight and watching. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one.